Okay, so I'm into G.I. Joe now. Yeah, I am. It's been a sort of hyperfixation that I've had for a little while now. I like to say maybe a month and a half or something like that. And how did it start? Well, yeah, figures, yeah. As many of you know, I've been getting a lot more into figure collecting lately. And one day I was like, look, I was, pre-ordering the S.H. Regards Chainsaw Man figure from this one site, and then I saw that they also had two upcoming G.I. Joe figures for pre-order, the retro cardback Duke and Scarlet. They were in 6-inch scale. They came with a ton of accessories, or a good amount of accessories, had really good articulation, and I was like really looking at these because I was like, all right, let me check these out for a bit. And I had seen G.I. Joe figures before, specifically the Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classified line and the retro cardback line, which is like essentially them making the characters in 6-inch scale and with really good articulation and accessories, all that stuff, the stuff I just said. But I had never really looked at them. I just kind of saw them, but I didn't really pay attention. But this time I was, and I realized, oh my god, these actually look really cool. Like, actually, man, like these look kind of awesome. And then I decided to look at the other figures, and I saw a bunch of unboxing videos for like the toys and whatnot, and I thought, wow, these actually look pretty neat. I don't know, they look fun. They look fun. And G.I. Joe is a franchise that I've been aware of for quite a long time, especially during like the 2010s when there was like 80s nostalgia everywhere, and I was kind of going through a bit of like a sort of 80s phase where I like to learn about older cartoons and 80s things, and like in this case it was the cartoons, so I liked learning about things like Transformers and He-Man and G.I. Joe, but I never really like delved into those franchises a lot, or maybe Transformers, but like other stuff I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I like learning about them, but I also like learning about all other stuff too, so I didn't really put that much attention on a specific franchise except Ninja Turtles, because obviously I love Ninja Turtles. But then recently, when I started looking at these figures, I was just like, all right, let me see what this franchise is all about. And then I started looking up like more about the characters and like all about them, their different personalities, and like all the work that was put into like making them who they are. Specifically, the work done by Larry Hama, who made up a lot of the G.I. Joe lore for the original comics, I guess, and he did excellent work. And then then I started watching some of the various G.I. Joe stuff, like episodes of the 80s cartoon G.I. Joe Renegades, which I had seen a little bit prior of, and I actually quite like it. It's actually pretty good. And then I watched the animated G.I. Joe movie from the 80s, also kind of fun. I rewatched G.I. Jeff, now knowing more about like what G.I. Joe is. I like that episode. I know community fans don't seem to like that one, but I like it. I think it's pretty fun. And then I started buying the figures. I got Destro at a Walmart, he was on sale. I got Tomax here at a Ross. He was also on sale, so I gotta get Zaymon since they're twins. I got Cobra Commander because I ended up really liking Cobra Commander as a villain. I thought he was quite fun. I actually really like Cobra, which is why I mostly have Cobra right now. But I did get a Joe. I got Shipwreck, and I do plan on getting other Joes. But these figures ended up being quite fun, honestly. And I actually do think I want to get more. Yeah, these figures are really, really neat. But this video isn't about these awesome figures. It is about the 2009 live-action film G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, which I watched recently. And I kind of knew going in that a lot of G.I. Joe fans did not seem to like this one. They thought it was terrible. It did terrible justice to the G.I. Joe franchise. And I can admit, it is not actually, I don't think I would say it's good, on a technical sense. It is definitely kind of your typical, like, dumb, kind of action film for, like, like teen boys. It's like, yeah, guys, we're cool and we rock, all that stuff, and there's action. Definitely feels like it's somewhat trying to ride the wave of the live-action Transformers film, which came out a few years prior. However, with that being said, I still found it kind of fun. This is not similar to I don't think it is, at least similar to what I had said about Catwoman, the 2004 film, which I talked about in my previous video. Go check that out, where I said that movie was like hilariously bad. It was like a fun, like, bad movie. Like, so bad it's good. But this is more like in a sense where it's like, no, I get what it's trying to be, and it's like not typically something I think I would like, or at least not anymore. But like it's something that I don't know, I still found some entertainment in it. Definitely I guess it's that one part of my brain that has not aged from 14 who's still but essentially point is, yeah, I don't really think it's that good, but it's fun, and I still kind of want to talk about it, mainly because I'm into G.I. Joe now, and when I have a hyperfixation, I tend to make a video on said hyperfixation or something relating to it. So technically speaking, a live-action G.I. Joe film had been in development since 1995, and it went through like many different changes and director changes and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like the success of Transformers, the Michael Bay film from 2007, kind of like, I don't know, helped elevate the idea that a live-action G.I. Joe movie should actually happen, because like I can sort of see Hasbro seeing Transformers being, one of their successful toy lines being turned into a pretty successful movie, and them trying to sort of emulate that same success with G.I. Joe, with it kind of having a similar vibe. And stylistically, I do think there's quite a bit of differences between the two, Transformers, directed by Michael Bay, and the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie. But like I can still sort of see some, just a tiny bit of that same DNA kind of spread to G.I. Joe, with it having a PG-13 rating, and also kind of having that sort of vibe of like, hey, let's focus a lot on the action and the characters being cool, right? And like marketable, right? Like, oh dang, they're so cool, they're super hot, all that stuff. And just kind of like, I don't know, that kind of vibe to it, like very much like a sort of like dumb action film for that a 14-year-old could like. And as someone who sometimes thinks like a 14-year-old, parts of it kind of work, honestly. Like even when it comes to that first Transformers film, even some parts I'm like, okay, that kind of neat, even if I can acknowledge, yeah, story-wise, there's a lot I don't like, which I'll get into in a bit. But yes, I don't know, I can sort of see like some of that Transformers like vibe being put into this, even if it's not entirely the same, which the differences, I'll get into that later as well. Speaking to story not really like, being that great, what is the story? Well, you see, it takes place in 2009 modern day, I guess, and it has Duke and Ripcord, played by Channing Tatum and Marlon Wayans, and they're part of the army, and they're on a super special mission, but then all of a sudden, I don't think that sounds right. All of a sudden, that's what I meant to say, they're attacked, and they want to find out who, and later on they are found by G.I. Joe, this secret army group that is not really known by the general public or even the government, I think that's what they said. And they wanna try to figure out who did all this, and Duke and Ripcord really want to figure out as well, so they ask to join, and so they do. They join G.I. Joe, and in it we got other characters as well, like we got General Hawk, played by Dennis Quaid. We have Scarlet, also played by someone whose name I don't remember at this time. We got Snake Eyes. I'm sure he's also played by someone. I can't remember who. But he's like, Snake Eyes. He's like one of the coolest G.I. Joe characters. He wears like all black. He's like a ninja, and like he has like a wolf. Not in this movie, but I mean in most general versions, he has like a wolf companion. Yeah, anyway, he's supposed to be super cool. He looks kind of dumb in this. Yeah, man, like he has like these weird like Power Ranger lips. And like, I don't know, I don't like it, if I'm being honest. Take a look. I believe Roadblock was also there. Gonna be honest, most of the G.I. Joes have very simplistic personalities and are not the most memorable, which you could make the argument for previous versions of G.I. Joe, which is true. Like, like the 80s cartoon definitely had that same vibe of like, oh hey, there isn't really much character development or growth throughout the whole thing, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I feel like they still could have done more. But regardless, they all look either really cool or really hot, and I'm sure that's all that matters to the studios, right, promoting this movie back in 2009. And anyway, they are G.I. Joe, and they gotta find out who did that attack, and it turns out it was Destro, who is someone who works for Mars Industries. He owns Mars Industries, or Mars, yeah, I think that was called Mars Industries, who makes like weapons for the military, but it turns out he's also making weapons to like, do evil stuff. And on his side, he has the Baroness, who turns out to be Duke's ex-girlfriend. In a kind of convoluted way, I'll explain later. There's also Storm Shadow, who has a secret past with Snake Eyes, and they fight sometimes, and it's kind of cool. And yeah, that's the movie. There's some action in there, there's some explosions, there's some weird moments that involve like CGI backgrounds that you can really tell they're not in front of an actual place, and it's clearly CGI, like a green screen, I mean. Yeah. That's I don't know what else to say. Like I said, like the plot itself doesn't really feel like a priority, I think. Like, I don't know, I can't really say anything about this is groundbreaking, but I can't really say it's terrible. It's like, oh, okay, I get the vibe, you know? It's like, hey, they want to get justice for what happened to like the people that they lost on that, you know, that attack. So they joined G.I. Joe, and you know, they got to work together to fight Destro. And you know, it works well enough. I think it works well enough. But the characters though, like I said, I feel like they're a bit too simplistic. Like, I don't know, I think like I said, I can't remember some of them, if I'm being honest. And like, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, they have enough there to like say they're for the bare minimum to say they have character. I think like Marlon Wayans, he's like a jokester and he wants to bone Scarlett so much, you know. And then we got Duke, who is a proud American, you know, and all he wants to do is like, you know, fight back those people that attack them, and also try to, I guess, save his like ex-girlfriend who has now become a sort of terrorist, I guess. So yeah, there's that. And oh my god, the Baroness, that's gonna be interesting to go. The action, like I said in the movie, can sometimes be pretty good. Like, sometimes there is a bit too much CG and like there's some of the locations, I think, but like some action sequence, like the sword fights between like Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, I think is actually kind of solid sometimes. And there's some moments where like they're, you know, riding around in the cars, the military vehicles and whatnot, and I go like, okay, that's kind of neat. It's nothing mind-blowing, but you know, it was decent action, I think, enough to leave me entertained as I was watching the movie. Like, I didn't feel bored, at least, you know, right? It was just like, yeah, it's like nothing incredible, and I have seen better, but I'm like at least somewhat entertained, which I think is kind of what I was looking for with this movie, I think. You know, just something entertaining enough. Let's see, the villains. I'm gonna talk about the villains for a bit, because when it comes to G.I. Joe, as I've been learning more about them, I think the villains, Cobra specifically, when you got characters like Cobra Commander, which we'll talk about that in a second, and the Baroness, Destro, Storm Shadow, Tomax, and Zaymont, you know, all those guys, I honestly think I actually kind of find that aspect of the G.I. Joe franchise the most interesting to me, which I know in most versions they are terrorists, but they're, you know, they're more like comic book villains than terrorists, you know, right? They like do like on the same level as something like the Joker or like Green Goblin, which you could make the argument those guys are terrorists too, because a lot of what they do could be considered acts of terrorism. Okay, I don't know where I'm going with this. Point is, I think Cobra is really interesting to me, or at least, I don't know, I like that aspect a lot. I like the villains the most. And in this movie, I actually do think, yeah, I find them a bit more interesting. They're still not incredible. Like, I think there are better versions of these characters in other G.I. Joe things that I've seen, but here I can at least tell you a bit more about them. Like, Destro is played by that one guy who was Doctor Who at one time. I think he was also the villain in Thor Dark World, if that means anything. But he's Irish, and like, you know, right, he has this thing where like he's like working for two sides, and he's like cartoonishly evil, where he kind of goes like, yes, you know, that's what you gotta do. You gotta work for both sides. And you know, he has an Irish accent, which is fun. And like, okay, actually, now I'm kind of thinking back, if I said like I can actually say more about them. I don't know. The point is, I kind of liked the way he performed it. It was a bit fun, you know. And the Baroness. Okay, well, actually, I'll wait. I'll save that one for a bit later. Storm Shadow, you know, pretty, like I said, has some pretty cool moments with Snake Eyes, where we do see quite a bit of that, where we see like they both grew up and they both learned, you know, martial arts together, and then they became enemies. I can't tell you what specifically happened, because I have bad memory, but the point is, it was shown. We did get some stuff for that, so I honestly do think that at least is something, and it was somewhat enjoyable, their fights, you know, pretty good stuff. And the Baroness, okay, I'm saying this because I actually have quite a bit to say about this. Okay, so in this movie, they say that the Baroness was Duke's ex-girlfriend, and then like, you know, they were together, but one time when he was like gonna go on a mission with her brother Rex, because they were both army men, she was all like, just make sure he comes back, you know, right? Make sure he's safe. And then he goes, all right, I promise. And then he dies. And then, of course, you know, she's upset about that, so I guess they break up. All right, makes sense. But then in the movie, it's later shown that, like, okay, so the reason she became the Baroness, like, part of this terrorist group, she, like, apparently was kidnapped, I guess, and was given, like, some weird device in her head that now makes her evil. But at the same time, she still has those feelings for Duke, so she's conflicted. Should she stay with Destro, which I guess they have a thing going on as well, which I guess is from previous versions as well, but like, but should she stay with Destro or should she go with Duke? But she's still so upset about her brother Rex. But then, okay, let me get something. Alright, so here is Cobra Commander, who I mentioned before. I got a figure of him, and I actually think he's a really fun villain in a lot of the stuff that I've seen. Like, I don't know, he's like cartoonishly evil, but there's something interesting about that. Like, I don't know, I like his design a bit. He's Cobra Commander, and like, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll better explain it when I'm not trying to get to the point I actually want to make. But the point is, I think Cobra Commander is a pretty neat villain. Here though, okay, so remember Rex, who I mentioned earlier? Well, okay, here's the thing. They say that Rex, he did not die apparently. Apparently, what happened is, like, when he was on the mission where he supposedly died, he saw, like, just to be clear, before this, we only got one scene with him, as just regular Rex. And it was, like, just, like, when he saw, like, Duke propose. Well, he didn't see Duke propose to Point is, he was there when Duke proposed to Baroness before she became Baroness. And, he was all like, congratulations. Alright, that's it. Anyway, then in a scene where you see what happened to him, he sees, like, these experiments happening that's doing some weird things to people, some really torturous stuff, and he just goes, this is amazing, this is beautiful, I gotta be part of this. And then, so I guess he fakes his own death, and then, like, he becomes, like, this sort of doctor, I guess, because we see throughout the movie, Destro talks to this guy with, like, weird, some weird stuff going on with his body, with mechanical stuff, and, like, he's got a weird face and scars and whatnot. I don't know. Point is, he's the doctor, and then it turns out that's Rex, and, like, I don't know what about him said evil, because I guess he just saw that creepy stuff, and he's just like, okay, yeah, it's pretty dope, bet. I'll be evil now. And so he goes like, okay, yeah, he's the doctor now, for Destro to do all this weird stuff. And he was okay with doing, like, putting that thing in his sister's brain, the Baroness. And I guess that's the reason they kidnapped her, because he wanted to see her. He wanted her to still be there. But, like, I don't know, like, this, I'm, like, if it sounds like all nonsense, that's because it kind of is, because even trying to explain it, I'm starting to remember, like, I always knew this was, like, ridiculous as I was watching it, but, like, saying it out loud, I'm reminded just how ridiculous it is. I don't know, it was just, like, all over the place. And then later, the reason I mentioned Cobra Commander is that they say that he's Cobra Commander, but the way it happens is, like, after everything goes down, it seems like, there's nothing left for, like, the Destro and his team to do, because they were defeated. Storm Shadow died, Baroness was, like, I think joined the other side, or, like, was, like, injured, I think, actually, because the brain thing almost went off in her head. Point is, it seems like they're down, and he goes like, what do I do? And then, like, then Rex comes in and puts, like, this metal thing on his face, and that's how he gets the metal Destro face. And then he goes like, and then he puts on something, that's what I mean, and he says, call me Commander. And it's a mask that looks nothing like the Cobra Commander mask. It looks like, it kind of looks like that one mask on the Jason X poster. I've never seen Jason X, but it kind of looks like that. And then what happens next is they get a message from G.I. Joe saying, like, hey, we're coming after you. And then Cobra Commander apparently says, oh yeah, you and what army? And then they're immediately captured. So he is Cobra Commander for, like, 30 seconds in the entire movie. And also, the character was played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah, I was surprised to see it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and honestly, like, I'm not saying this was a good characterization, because, like I said, a lot of the stuff in there is nonsense, but it is interesting, because I've never seen Joseph Gordon-Levitt play a character like this. I've only, I guess, just seen his normal face, but, like, him going through all those, like, I guess, like, makeup stuff and whatnot, and then, like, being, like, this outlandishly cartoonishly evil, I guess, but, like, in a nonsensical way, makes it interesting. So, like, I don't love what they do with Cobra Commander in this, but I can't not say that it isn't enjoyable, because, like, did I say that right? Yeah, I think so. I can't not say that it isn't enjoyable. I actually don't know. I'm messing up my words. Point is, I think it's stupid, and it is, like, interesting. Like, I was just like, okay, movie, okay, if that's what you're going for, then I guess I'll follow along. This is what I mean. I actually think, like, the villain stuff in this movie is more interesting, at least for me to talk about. So yeah, I guess Cobra is still the best part of this, like in many other G.I. Joe things. I'm standing by it. I'm standing by that. But yeah, from what I've seen, I should say, I'm still new. I'm still new to the franchise. But yes, G.I. Joe successfully wins, and in the end, we see them in their full new uniforms, and they're kind of terrible, I don't like it. It kind of reminds me a lot of what they did in the early X-Men films, where instead of the yellow jumpsuits or like the colorful outfits for everyone, they just kind of give everyone like black jumpsuits or something, and it kind of looks similar to that. And it's like, come on, guys, that's not interesting. Come on, like, have some, like, put some color in there. Like, the G.I. Joes are full of color. They all have like fun outfits, but like, or most of them do, but like, yeah. No, they don't. It's kind of lame, honestly. And then they're in front of like what you can clearly tell is just a green screen. Like, man, it does not look like they're in that secret location at all. Like, they're like in this base with all this military stuff around them, and it's like, it's so clearly green screen. Same thing for like this one scene where Marlon Wayans is like falling down after like successfully shooting down like this like machine, like this like weapon that like I'll just say Cobra. I don't think they call themselves Cobra, but I'll call it Cobra. The Cobra, they like they like try to like send out this thing that will like destroy a lot of stuff essentially. And Marlon Wayans is able to successfully shoot it all down, but in the process he parachutes down in front of the White House. But it does not look like he's in front of the White House. It looks so green screen, honestly. Yeah, I forgot to mention, it turns out Destro was making like a thing that are like these kind of nanobots that like can like chip away at anything. So you put them in front of a tank, boom, tank is gone. And that was the big thing that they were gonna spread out, and G.I. Joe had to stop them. Man, I'm kind of all over with this. I'm sorry. I should learn to structure things better. Anyway, that was G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. It is a, kind of a dumb movie. Parts of it don't make sense, or should I say really don't make sense. And the characters themselves are kind of just, they have stuff, but nothing too interesting. But I don't know, I still had fun. Like, you see the smile on my face, I was entertained. Something that I do kind of wish that the movie had was at least a more interesting, like, visual style. Like, I don't know, like, the cinematography and everything was just kind of okay, kind of your standard movie, like, action stuff. Like I said, like, this is, like, kind of the big thing that I think makes it different from Transformers, where it's, like, you can, any frame that you look at that, like, you can clearly see that it has, like, Michael Bay's style in it, even from like the way like things are like sort of portrayed, or like the way the characters act. It like has that Michael Bay style, sometimes to a fault, where it's maybe a bit too much Michael Bay, but still I can't say I can speak more about how that movie looks, or like how that movie, like the vibes it gives off. Where this, it kind of just feels like your kind of generic summer blockbuster thing. Did this come out in the summer? I don't know, but yeah, kind of generic, dumb PG-13 action blockbuster, but still I was still somewhat entertained, and depending on which is better, I don't know. I haven't rewatched Transformers in a very long time, but anyway, G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Yeah, kind of dumb, but kind of fun as well. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go play with my G.I. Joe toys and try to see if I can hold off buying more, because I really should be not wasting my money all the time on figures. This was one of the worst financial decisions I could have ever made, getting into figures.